I didn't realize how bad it was until I tried to step away from the railing and my legs didn't respond the way they should have. I was standing on a grated metal platform inside the missile silo, both hands wrapped around the rusted railing, and for a few seconds, my body felt disconnected from what my mind was telling it to do. I wasn't leaning dangerously far. I was just looking down, but looking down felt like too much. The central shaft ran straight through the middle of the structure, a smooth concrete cylinder that dropped vertically into darkness. Our flashlights were strong enough to light the immediate walls and the lower platforms, but the beam faded long before it found the bottom. I kept waiting to see something solid down there. Debris, standing water, anything that would give my eyes a point of reference. But there was nothing, just depth that swallowed light. At first, I thought it was simple vertigo. I've never loved heights, but I've never had a severe reaction either. I've stood on rooftops and near cliff edges without my knees giving out. This was different. My calves were tight. My shoulders felt like they were bracing against something. The longer I stared into the shaft, the more it felt like my body was compensating for movement that wasn't happening. My center of gravity felt slightly forward, even though I knew I was upright. Mark asked if I was good. I told him I was fine, but my voice didn't sound steady. He stepped closer to look for himself. I remember wanting to tell him not to, but I didn't want to sound dramatic. We'd come prepared. We weren't reckless. The silo was decommissioned decades ago, structurally stable from what we'd researched. This wasn't some collapsing ruin. It was engineered concrete. That almost made it worse. There was nothing irregular about the space. It was precise, manufactured, a perfect vertical drop in the center of a man-made cylinder. Mark leaned forward slightly and gripped the railing. Within seconds, I saw his posture change. He stiffened in a way that told me he felt it too. He stepped back without saying anything at first, then quietly admitted that it felt strange looking down there for too long. That's when I started noticing the silence properly. In a space that large, your footsteps should echo. Voices should carry. Even a dropped object should create a series of diminishing sounds as it hits surfaces on the way down. But everything inside the silo felt muted. When we spoke, the sound didn't travel cleanly. It felt absorbed by the walls, contained. We already gone several levels down before that moment. The staircase spiraled along the inner wall, bolted into concrete, and each step had given a dull, metallic ring under our boots. But the ring didn't bounce. It just stopped. We decided to continue down one more level before heading back up. Neither of us said we were uncomfortable. We framed it as finishing the exploration we'd started. But our pace slowed. As we moved lower, the vertigo didn't fade. It intensified, not constantly, but in waves. I would feel steady for a while, then glance toward the center and feel my stomach drop again, as if I were at the edge of something unstable. Halfway down the next flight, I shined my flashlight directly into the shaft and held it there longer than before. I wanted to force myself to adjust to the depth. The beam extended downward, illuminating sections of wall and railing below us. But the farther it went, the less defined everything became. It wasn't just darkness. It was a loss of scale. The structure seemed to stretch the more I looked at it. My brain kept trying to measure distance and failing. That failure created a kind of internal imbalance. I felt slightly nauseous, like being on a boat that rocks subtly but never enough to justify bracing yourself. Mark stopped a few steps below me and said something didn't look right. I asked what he meant. He said the lower platforms seemed farther apart than they had earlier. I looked carefully and couldn't confirm it, but I also couldn't dismiss it. The spacing did feel inconsistent. Logically, that wasn't possible. The structure was fixed, but perception inside that cylinder didn't feel reliable anymore. We stood there longer than we should have. The longer I remained near the open center, the more intrusive the thoughts became. I could picture the fall in mechanical detail, the loss of grip, the acceleration, the impact against concrete. The images weren't dramatic, they were clinical, specific, and they repeated themselves automatically, as if my brain was rehearsing them. At one point, I realized I was leaning forward slightly without intending to. I corrected my posture, stepped back, and felt immediate relief. The relief itself disturbed me because it was too strong for the situation. Stepping away from the railing felt like stepping out of influence. I stumbled slightly on the stairs. My weight shifted toward the shaft, just enough to trigger a surge of panic, so intense it felt electrical. My vision narrowed and my heart rate spiked instantly. It took several seconds before I could convince myself I was stable. Mark grabbed my arm and said we were heading up. We didn't argue. Going back up felt longer than going down, not because of exhaustion, but because my perception remained unstable. Each time I looked down to place my foot, the shaft appeared closer than before. Not physically closer, but more present, as if the space was rising toward us instead of receding below. About 2 levels from the top, the vertigo hit again without warning. I wasn't even looking at the center when it happened. My body swayed, and I had to grip the railing hard to steady myself. For a brief moment, the far wall of the shaft looked slightly angled inward near the bottom, like the cylinder narrowed the deeper it went. I blinked, and it corrected, but the impression lingered long enough to make me doubt my own balance. We finally reached the upper platform near the hatch. The faint daylight filtering down felt almost aggressive after the darkness. The moment I stepped farther from the inner railing, the vertigo stopped completely. My balance returned. The pressure sensation lifted. That immediate shift unsettled me more than anything else. If it had been simple fear of heights, it would have lingered. Instead, it vanished the moment I put distance between myself and the open shaft. We exited the silo without discussing going back down. Outside, everything felt normal again. Stable ground, predictable space, wind moving freely, the sky visible. But something had changed in the way I process vertical space. Even now, if I stand too long at the edge of an open stairwell or lean over a railing inside a tall building, I feel a faint version of that same sensation. Not fear exactly, not dizziness in the traditional sense. It's the awareness of how easily my body could lean forward if I stopped correcting it. And what stays with me isn't the darkness at the bottom of that silo. It's how natural it began to feel to stand there and imagine stepping into it. Thanks for watching No Sleep Tonight, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps this channel grow. And if you want more unsettling stories, there are 2 more waiting for you on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, sleep well.